Hello, everyone, and welcome to Medium's World. I am Bonnie Wirth. I am your host for this amazing event. And of course, I am also a medium. The world of mediumship for I would say, for the vast majority of people, is something that is very misunderstood. And often, because of that, there's a lot of misinformation that is out in the world about this amazing healing modality. I am very passionate about not only helping other mediums to develop their abilities in communication with the unseen world, but also in terms of helping other people to recognize the direct connection that we have to those that we have loved so dearly, and their support, their presence in our lives, just in a very different way. The work when I first started out in my business, which is almost close to 15 years of working professionally as a medium, I began, doing readings and connections, healing sessions for individuals. And over time, as people were coming in for sessions, more and more people were revealing their secret that they held onto for most of their life. And that secret was that they too were a medium, and they would ask if there was any way that I would be able to help them in navigating their sensitivity to the other side, and help them to learn more, like, asking questions on about how to create a healthy connection, how to manage in terms of what might be lower vibrating interference in their home, etc. So that really began what has grown into this amazing opportunity and chance that I have to mentor so many mediums and helping them in that exact same way. So over the years, I've shared with them the very processes, the skills, the things that I learned myself throughout my journey professionally, in through the conversations with the spirit world, and of course, just from my own personal interaction of how I needed to create a way in which to thrive within my own life, to navigate a sensitivity that was vastly, as I said, misunderstood, and which really caused a lot of, almost denial of a part of myself, simply because I worked hard to fit in to societal norms, to be accepted in community, to be accepted by family and friends. And until, of course, it gets to a point in all of our lives where it becomes necessary for us to begin living our lives for the joy of our experiences in this world. So that really, it was kind of a cultivation of that. But my connection to the unseen world happened long before I started working professionally. In fact, I never would have planned on working professionally doing this at all. If there would have been anyone would have told me, way back when, I'm not gonna age myself, but way back when, in terms that this is the part of the work that I would be doing in the world, I would have completely denied it and ran the other direction. So it's amazing how the universe works and how a sense of purpose unfolds simply because our willingness to begin to change, doing life or living life in new ways. So a big factor for me now, through, as I sit here almost 15 years later, in this beautiful, this this beautiful modality that I get to be a part of, and I get to help so many other mediums with. As I sit here, I utilize my connection to the other side, not only to do readings and bring through those beautiful messages that continue to validate life after death. I also have the chance to be able to work with so many people in helping to heal their trauma and work through what is the wounded spaces of their heart, in helping them to reclaim a sense of well-being in their lives, mentally, emotionally, physically, as well as spiritually. And I utilize my connection to the other side in order to do that, bringing those messages in from the spirit world, as well as connecting with their angels and guides, and of course, through that beautiful divine healing that is available through the high vibration of the light force energy, that we have, the ability to be able to transmit and bring forward from one world into the other. So, like I said, my sense of purpose over the years has certainly grown, and never, ever, ever did I expect that I would be sitting in front of you, hosting an event like this, being out on this stage stage or any stage, really giving voice to the healers, the mediums, the spiritual empaths of the world to help to advocate for not only in what would be a sense of societal acceptance of a very misunderstood group of people, but also in terms of looking at alternative healing mythologies and methods in which to begin to really direct or help other people to make some really substantial and positive change in their life. So it's, as I said, it's amazing how it all unfolded. My sensitivity to the spirit world was something that was a part of my life forever. I can't even remember a time, honestly, where I didn't have some form of interaction to the non-physical world. That my experiences with them, even from the time of being a very small child, I never realized that other people weren't seeing or conversing with these with these souls in the way that I was. I just never, I thought this is something that happened for everybody. I never realized that it was different. And I definitely didn't realize that it was something very unique in experience that I was having as opposed to how other people were maybe experiencing or living their lives. Um, right from, as I said, from a small child, this has been, I had, imaginary friends. I always had, somebody to play with. I could, play by myself for hours and have the best time ever. Lots of conversation, lots of playmates. And just really, in times of what might have been challenges, even within my own childhood, which was, incredibly tumultuous, that I had this connection and these people that were helping to nurture me, to protect me, to talk me through some of the adversity and the upset that we was experiencing within the home. It was, I want to say, when I look back now, I'm amazed at how well taken care of I was the whole time, how much I was supported, how much I was cared for, even through some of the most challenging or difficult times in my life. Like many children who have child onset abilities in mediumship, it's not something that an individual tends to use or find any purpose with until well later in life. So there are more and more youth, adolescents coming forward that are starting to utilize their connection and to be, very authentic in their expression and the reality of their connection to the non-physical world, which I am celebrating. I'm so grateful for the fact that we have, as a collective, really created a permission base for a younger generation to begin to step forward to be sharing their connections, their messages, and their wisdom that they are receiving from the non-physical world with all of us. But when we look at that, that's not how it is for everyone with childhood onset abilities. As I said, this is generally something that begins to show up later on in life. There can be some kind of catalytic experience that takes place that really pushes someone to move into coming into and utilizing and understanding, developing even their connection to the unseen world, a deeper sense of purpose, of calling that can sometimes come about from a not so pleasant experience in life. We have, again, everything is so divinely orchestrated for us that it positions us in sense of path and purpose, and in terms of what our soul's mission and goals are here in this lifetime. For myself, as I said, this was something very, very young. It was not something that was accepted. It was not something that was supported. I grew up in a very strong Catholic family. And so, based within the confines and the belief systems within Catholicism, my connections to the unseen world were said or believed to be connections and interactions with the devil. And within the scope of religion and my mediumship abilities, I had more fear-based approaches or fear-based understanding of my experiences. I really thought that God had made a really big mistake the day that I was born, that somehow, the experiences I was having, that the devil really was controlling or, orchestrating these connections, even though there were times when they were so beautiful, so light-filled, and so loving, and I'm hanging out with my grandma. But in the meantime, I'm being told that this is the devil's work, and this is indeed a connection, or being facilitated by what would be those dark forces. So I was very afraid of my interactions with the other side. Now, I did have some not so pleasant experiences as a child with a lower vibrational energies or lower vibrational spirits, but I also had a lot of very lovely, beautiful connections with those individuals on the other side, who I said I would often spend time with, and in conversation, or just knowing their presence with me. So there was, I had a lot of relatives as well, because of, the belief systems and things, whether within Christianity, within Catholicism, that really prayed for my soul. Like they would not only have the messages, of saying, Bonnie, that's, you can't, that's not God, that's the devil. You can't say the things you're saying, or really had me, like I said, in fear of those connections to the other side. I had never really had an experience with death directly until my grandmother had died. And up until that point, I was really in a place of believing that, the devil did really have a hold of me. There were times that I would also say things to people that might have been just out of the blue, that might have been a random message from their loved ones on the other side, or I would explain a physical apparition that I was, witnessing, and I would share that with people. And my mom, out of love and protection, she'd say, Bonnie, you have to stop saying those things to people. They're going to think you're crazy. So I grew up with this belief that the devil had a hold of me and that I was crazy. So it wasn't something that I felt that I could really share, or I could really express in terms of this weirdness that was going on in my life. And so it became very detrimental. I mean, over a long period of time, became very detrimental for me, because it was a sense of denial, embarrassment, of being weird and different, and believing I was going crazy. I was so afraid of the spirit world. And of course, those fear-based belief systems really not only directed that for me, but also directed a lot of the experiences I began to have with the non-physical world. Like anything with the universe is, based on what we express or what we put out into the universe. Like attracts like. So fear-based thoughts are going to create fear-based experiences. And so that really began to, become a part of my reality, even as a very small child. And so, I firmly believe that sometimes we need to experience the dark in order to know that the light exists. It's just not very pleasant in that unfolding. So moving into, as I said, as I got older and moving into school and into high school, elementary school, I, had went to a school in a farm community. It was like a one classroom, farm community schoolroom, and the building was extremely haunted. And needing to go downstairs to go to the washroom, or go downstairs to even get gym equipment or anything, I felt like I was always being suffocated or accosted in some way by the non-physical world. So even school wasn't a place where I felt really safe, and still was really living within the fear-based experiences of that world. Once I got into high school, this is when things really started to take more of a heightened sense of what would be conversation or direct interaction with the non-physical world. I had several classmates at different periods in time, from kind of into grade 8 up until grade 11, grade 12, that were killed in many different ways, whether in car accidents or suicides, things like that. And there was illness, the things that play out for everyone in terms of death. And I would have, one of my friends, she was a year older than me, was one of those individuals who had passed away. And she came to me almost immediately, within a few days of her passing, and really pushing me to go and talk to her mom and dad, really pushing me to go and let them know that she was sorry, that she had been out. She had actually snuck out that night. She wasn't supposed to be out. She was supposed to be home. She ended up getting into a car accident and died. And so she was really wanting me to let her mom and dad know how sorry she was that she didn't listen and that her death had caused such a not only heartache, but disruption. And she wanted them to know that they were really good parents. And she, she had pressured me to the point that I actually parked across the street from their house and sat there for a very long time, going, not sure what I was going to do, to walk up to the door. Again, this was a very strong Catholic family. So I knew what I was up against based in terms of those belief systems. And I sat across the street and stared at their house for a very long period of time, debating whether or not I should go and knock at the door. And if I did, what I would say. I didn't follow through. I just couldn't bring myself to to move into such an uncomfortable place of showing up and knocking at their door and introducing myself in terms of speaking to their dead daughter. So there were several other instances in my teen years where those experiences would continue to happen. And again, something I just held in secret. It wasn't something I shared with anyone. I never talked to my parents about it. I never talked to my best friends about it. I never shared anything. It was something that I was in solo experience with, because I believed it was the devil's work, and I believed that everyone was going to truly believe that I was crazy. And so, just swallowing that truth, holding back, holding it in. It wasn't moving forward into, becoming a mom and having, children. I have three amazing adult children and three little grandbabies, of course, and two wonderful in-law children. I mean, our family just has grown and expanded, which is just like they are my prides and joy through and through. But the birth of my son, my oldest son, that really is what began to set a greater sensitivity to the non-physical world, that all of a sudden things that I had maybe denied or I was avoiding in some way, it was like spirit started getting louder and louder. And it just seemed to progress with the birth of my daughter, especially after her birth. I did have a near death experience, and so after I came back from that, in back into the physical world, that's when there was no denying the spirit world was there. I could not shake them. There was a constant inundation of conversation, of spirits around me. It was like I couldn't run away anymore. I couldn't deny things, and yet still said nothing, did nothing, held it in. Again, as I said, we have three children, moving forward as to they're a little bit older, in their early years as well. And it wasn't now all of a sudden in my home, we started to have some occurrences and things begin to happen that were not only, not, it wasn't just me who was experiencing the spirit world anymore. Suddenly there were experiences and phenomena taking place in my home that were affecting my family as well. And so that became incredibly, upsetting, feeling like I definitely didn't want, my kiddos growing up believing they were crazy. I didn't want them to believe that, the devil had a hold of them. And so that was really in, prayer or asking, in terms of needing to know what to do or how to work with this. So I did what any good Catholic girl would do. And even though I wasn't a practicing Catholic anymore at that time, I did connect with the archdiocese in one of the neighboring cities where I lived, and I made an appointment with the Monsignor to talk about the things that I was experiencing and what was happening in my home. And at first, he definitely, said I needed to see a psychologist. I needed to, maybe make an appointment with a doctor. And that there were probably issues that I was having were probably mental issues that were showing up for my children as well. And I was not having any of it. I remember, sitting up in my seat, and it was like that mama bear just really took off in that moment. And I just began to say to him, I am not making this up. And I started to share all the experiences that I had, not only with light beings, but also with what would be dark forces or negative experiences from the early time. Talked to him about all of the interactions that I had had over the years with the spirit world. And then once I, shared everything with him, he said to me, he said, I take back what I said. He said, you have to understand that many people come in here proclaiming the same things that you proclaim, but I can definitely, I know based on what you're sharing that this is very real for you. And so he had helped me at that time, not only in helping me to learn how to do blessings in my home in order to begin to close down some of the doorways or openings to the non-physical world where these entrance points, so to speak, where they were, but also gave me some really sage advice. And his sage advice was, Bonnie, you need to find your faith. He said, you are wafting in your own faith. And because of that wafting, that you are becoming susceptible and you are being taken advantage of by these darker forces. And so you need to find where your faith lies, and you need to really start to ground yourself in what you believe in. So that was, even though of course by that point he wasn't encouraging me to, go back into my religious, attend church or anything. He just was really encouraging me to find my truth and what I believed in and to get anchored in that. And so after finding that, and I was able to, follow some of his practices and blessing the home and being able to finally breathe again and find some ease in our in our environment and creating a safe and environment for our kiddos. Then from there it went into where I was still having these experiences. I now needed to learn to understand more about what made me tick. Why was this continuing to happen? And so I actually made an appointment with another medium, and I went and had what would be my first session with a medium. And when I sat down with her, even before we got started, I said to her, I said, okay, so I just have to tell you straight off out of the gate, I am a medium. I've had experiences with the non-physical world my whole entire life. I've worked really hard to ignore it, to pretend it away, to close down any of those openings to the other side. And I just need to know that in my being here, is this going to open up a can of worms for me? And she took a deep breath and she kind of giggled and she said, yes, it is. And I then took a deep breath and I said, all right, let's do this, because I needed the information. I needed to find out why this was happening. And more importantly, I needed to continue to sustain a healthy environment energetically for my kids. And so that really became the beginning of where she helped me through those connections, helping me to understand a little bit more about my own sensitivity. So I'd only seen her, maybe for 2 or 3 sessions and things like that. But it really is what began. She gave me some practices and things, of course, that I could begin enacting upon that were very supportive and helpful for me. And so we, basically lived as a family with having the conversations at home. These are, we had these weird things, the spirit phenomena that would happen. And there were things that I was just able to control and to do and began to, grow in faith. I reached a point, though, by the time I was 30 years old, again, I had all of my babies by that point in time. I had a very tumultuous childhood, and that's a big part of why I feel so called and passionate to help other people in being able to heal trauma through holistic and alternative methods, is because that is definitely the route that I took. But I had reached a point by the time I was 30 where I was very, very depressed. I was suicidal, even though I had really started to understand more about the spiritual nature of things. My past was haunting me. It wasn't spirit anymore. It was the things that I had lived through, the things that I was dealing with in my own psyche. And so I started really doing some deep healing work, started my healing journey. I began to resolve and begin to recover from the traumatic experiences that I had had as a child. And so helping through compounded trauma, complex PTSD, that I was able to utilize energy medicines and the connection in working with others to be able to begin to heal and to move beyond the past and into a more presence of joy and light in my own life. And so through that healing, then what began to happen? You guess it. What begins to happen? Well, now those connections, they're not going away. My heightened vibration now really opened up the communication to the non-physical world. And as I said at the start of the program, I knew that there was something with this that was important in terms of work. I just didn't have a pulse on what that would look like. So I had, done a lot of my healing work. I, worked full time. Like I said, we lived in this little world where we had quiet conversations about things that took place, and tell my kids on Monday morning, remember, don't tell anybody about what happened. This is just our family secret, and things like that. And so it was just how we lived our lives. But it reached a point when I started for my own self to have a greater sense of that well being. I was beginning to see the impact that my healing, my trauma healing, the approach that I was taking was having. And I knew that there might be something to this that could be, important for me to learn and understand. So I actually took some training and some. Certifications. I started within Theta Healing, and I did it not to ever do work. As I said earlier, I would never plan on doing this work at all professionally. This was just something that I was learning to understand for myself. I needed to learn to do this simply so that I could begin to become my own healer and be empowered through my connection and really helping, to restore my wellness in my life. And so, as progressing through that, I was at a point again where I was really in a real positive place in life. Um, it was interesting. Just I want to, in going back in just traveling back several years, um, my prior to having my first son, my dad had been killed, and I was in a place in my life where, in the thought that it's like the one person I really wanted to connect with on the other side was the one person who was unavailable to me. And I really resented my mediumship abilities. I had everybody else's dead relatives showing up to talk and to communicate with me, except the one person that I wanted to talk to the most. And that was very, there, as I said, I really resented. I resented spirit coming forward to me. I hated the fact that I had these sensitivities to the other side, and that, as I said, that was a big part of what led me into, in combination with everything that happened in the past, into that what would be crisis moment in my life, where at 30, where I was, looking for more. And so what I found was that through my healing, all of a sudden my dad was showing up. All of a sudden, the one person who I yearned to connect with, I was starting to have experiences with him. I was starting to interact and not only know his presence, but actually have conversations and hear his laughter. And it was amazing to be able to reestablish a connection to him after all of those years where it felt like he was unavailable available to me. As many people, as we grow up, or we believe that, heaven is someplace really very far away. I mean, how many of us, look up to the clouds and searching for our loved ones, and knowing that they're somewhere beyond this world, way up there somewhere. And what I discovered in my dad coming forward in that was that he always had been close. And he was, of course, doing his healing work. I was doing my healing work. And so we were able to come together after having been, apart for so many years in physical and non-physical. And it was through that where I began to understand that when we look at energies, energy fields and things like that, that heaven is just 2 inches away from our fingertips, that our loved ones are very close to us, and that, and as mediums, what we do is we basically learn to penetrate that 2 inch veil, or the congestion that would cause a separation between the physical and non-physical world. And so I began to discover that no matter what direction I looked, no matter what direction I reached out my hand, that he was there, and he wasn't somewhere way beyond. And so that was something that was really remarkable. And I started to really, I mean, not that I was hanging out with him every day, but of course those interactions became very, very important to me. It wasn't until my husband's best friend passed away that which was really a pivotal or turning point for me in terms of my connection to the other side, or even in doing this work. As I said, I had already been going through the healings. I was, I hadn't, taken any formal training or anything, but I was doing the deeper work that was necessary in helping me to raise my vibration. And after, when he passed away, it was an instantaneous, like the next day, where we get the call, on one day, and the next day he's sitting on my couch. And if you've ever seen that movie with Whoopi Goldberg, that movie Ghost, that's exactly what became my life following his death. He was showing up all the time, and he'd say, Bonnie, I need to talk to you. I need you to get messages to my wife. I need you to let her know these things. And he would give me all of this stuff. And I would say, no, you cannot be here. I'm not okay with you being dead. We don't get to have this conversation. I don't want to talk to you. I am not going to give her these messages. I'm not doing this. And he would continue to show up, like in the most random times and random ways. I mean, he would show up. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and he's sleeping between my husband and I, or I'd get out of the shower and there he was standing in the bathroom. All of these really inconvenient experiences, and I kept chasing him away. Just, no, I am not doing this. I am not telling anyone that I'm able to do this. And so it was several weeks following his death, and we happened to be visiting with his wife. My husband and I were out there, and he was super strong, and he was very annoying, and he wouldn't leave me alone. And as we were sitting in conversation, he's saying, Bonnie, you have to tell her. You have to tell her what you can do. You have to tell her. She's going to believe you. She's going to understand. You have to tell her. And he would just be constantly repeating it, repeating it. And I would get up and I would leave the room and I'd go to the bathroom. And of course, he's coming with me. I'd say, leave me alone. I am not telling her. Go away. Stop bothering me. This is not happening. And then I'd walk out back into the living room and sit down again. And there he was again. I must have went to the bathroom I must have been in there like 10 times. It was like every couple minutes I'm going in there and having the same conversation with him. And he would not leave me alone. In the meantime, while I'm in the bathroom, of course, the story goes later on, my girl, like his wife and my husband, were looking at each other saying, like, is she okay? Like, is she sick? Like, how come she keeps going to the bathroom so much? Like, they were so confused by it. But I'm having like all of these, like, leave me alone. I am not doing this. You are not forcing me to share anything. And it got to the point in that evening where the pressure that I was receiving from him was so extreme that I had almost no choice but to go and kneel down in front of her. And I went and I mean, my heart was racing. Every fear that I ever had of people judging me, in my childhood, in the concepts or the beliefs and things, the fear-based association with all of this were all coming up for me. So I was not only crying in front of her and just saying to her, I have to tell you something. And she said she was panicked. She thought I was going to tell her that I was really ill or something. She was like preparing herself for like this really bad news. And she was, again, I would, set the stage here a little bit in this. So she's sitting in the recliner. She's got one of his big sweatshirts on. She's got a toque pulled down over her hair, and she's grieving. She's just in a space of just, of her grief. And I took her hands and I said, I have to tell you something. I said, I'm not sure whether you're going to believe me or not. I said, but I am a medium. And this evening, your husband is not leaving me alone, and he's been bothering me for the last several weeks, and really needs me to share some messages with you. And she went, okay. And I shared some messages with her and things like that. And I'm going to apologize to anyone who gets offended in any way from what I'm about to say. Anyway, I had shared all these beautiful messages, and she just sat there listening, and she was just paying attention in that moment. And then I said to her, I said, "Oh," I said, "I can't believe I'm about to tell you this." I said, "You need to know I would never say this to you, but he wants me to tell you to take off that fucking toque because you look ridiculous." And in that moment, she bolted up from her chair and she grabbed hold of me, real tight in my hands, and she said, "Oh my God, he really is here." And I said, "Yes, he is." And she said that morning when she woke up, she was very angry at him. And she decided to put on that toque because every time she wore that toque, he would tell her that she looked fucking ridiculous. And so she put it on that morning and said, "There, you can't tell me I look fucking ridiculous. I'm going to wear this toque if I want to." And so anyway, he showed up with that message. And then it was I shared a little bit more with her. It was so, I mean, she was so accepting and so grateful and so appreciative of that moment, of course, that we shared there. But we did have a continuous constant relationship or connection where I would receive many messages from him. I would not only be able to share them with her, whether in talking on the phone or when we were visiting, but he started to give me what I can only describe as love letters from heaven. And I began to just inscribe messages from her, things that she needed to, steps she needed to take, what he, in helping her to make some decisions, helping to iron out some of the disruption that his death had caused for her, and had spent pretty much the following year in helping her through her grief, through these messages, and of course, through our prayers and some of the healing that I had learned how to do. And it was after spending that year with her where I started to recognize that this ability that I had, for it to have had such a direct and positive impact on someone's life, I knew that if I could help her in this way, I knew that there were many other people that I would be able to help in doing this work as well. And so I ended up quitting my day job, which didn't go over well with my husband, by the way. Just he was, this whole thing. Had my kids not had direct experiences with the spirit world, he would never, he says to this day, he would never have believed this was possible had it not been for the fact of what, our kids had experienced. And so in that, I had quit with no really idea as to what I was going to do. And so I quit in June, and I took July to kind of just contemplate and figure out my life from that point forward. And by August, I ended up in a training seminar for theta healing. I did level 1 in August. I did level 2 in September. And by October 1st, I opened up my business in doing readings and healings for people. And it has been just 15 years of just miracles and unbelievable things that have transpired. I'm at the point now, as I said, where I not only get to come and do amazing events like this, but I'm at the point now where I just being vocal about this, letting people know that there are options in their healing, letting people know that this is real, and more importantly, being able to help and support mediums to know that they're not crazy, that they are not the misfits, that they are not, that there's nothing wrong with them, that God didn't make a mistake the day they were born, that there was a perfect recipe that was put together, and that is just, we get to live life in a different way. But because we live life in a different way, it doesn't mean that we're not worthy. We're not worthy of being respected, loved, and accepted or understood. And so that's been a big, big push for me in terms of call and purpose. And so I feel so lucky now, because there are people can still say whatever they want about mediums or about this ability to communicate with the non-physical world. Their perspectives and their beliefs are theirs. My perspective and beliefs have been formed based solely on what I've experienced directly and the miracles that I have witnessed in my client sessions taking place. Because there's like one word that can completely change the trajectory of someone's life, one word that can make all of the difference in terms of what can become possible. And to see the miracles that took place, the conversations that happen, it's like when nobody can change my mind about it. You cannot tell me this is not real. You cannot tell me that this is not taking place, because I've seen it, I've experienced it, I've witnessed it, and I have the joy of being able to help and support not only mediums in their development and creating a healthy, whole life in navigating their sensitivity to the non-physical world, but of course, because of the miracles that I was able to experience and that I've been able to, create through those connections for my own life. And so, there will always be naysayers. There will always be people who don't believe. I still to this day will receive messages questioning my integrity about, how I can believe in God and be a medium. And, I'm not offended. I just understand people for where they are and based on in their life. And I also know that their truth is different than my truth. But just because it's different, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me. It's just different. And so I am at the place, here all these years later, where I feel it's unfortunate to me. It's not like I feel sorry for them in a sense of like I pity them. That's not it at all. But for me, it's like I can't imagine not living my life with this connection to the non-physical world. I'm sorry that other people don't get to experience, that they are in their suffering, that they don't realize, the connection, the love, and the messages that their loved one is working so hard to come forward and through, simply because they are so afraid or stuck within their own their belief systems. And so for me, I feel very lucky, very fortunate. I'm in deep appreciation for my connection to the non-physical world, and I feel lucky that I get to do this with my life. I just feel just like I have won the lottery in terms of being able to do this work. Now, that being said, and that's a big part of, that our conversations you're going to hear over this next 10 days, there are a lot of highs and wonderful things about being a medium. There's also some challenges and some things that are difficult to navigate. And there are, where I'm a firm believer, and as I teach in my programs, that mediums are what I refer to as the compassionate healers of the world, and that we as mediums are needed more than ever to bring forward the messages to help to reconcile some of the deep losses and traumas that people are experiencing over this last decade. I feel like we have a great responsibility to be of service to help people in doing that. And so there is a deep sense of compassion that runs through every single medium that you're going to meet, a call and feeling like we just want to help make a positive difference. We want to help people so badly in being able to find some peace in their lives, to be able to move through the impossibility of death. I mean, death is without a doubt the most difficult thing that we as human beings ever have to go through. When someone we love dies, we lose a sense of ourself. We lose a sense of our dreams, our hopes, our future, but we lose a sense of who we are and in the world. And so, for many people, and I've seen it, so for many years, of course, where people suffer and they suffer almost unnecessarily in their pain simply because not aware or in fear of these connections to the other side. And so, I look at here that there is, like as I said, a great responsibility to help and be of service. But that being said, our compassion can also be somewhat of a detriment, and a detriment in the sense that because of the amount of suffering, the grief, the sorrows, the inability to even help or feeling helpless can also lead, our compassion can also spiral us into feeling very hopeless as well. And so being able to, we experience not only the energy of spirit, but we process and we feel and we sense the energy of the world and of other people's suffering. And so we're in constant processing within that sensitivity to find our sense of wellness. And if we're not in practice with in some way to be able to create a healthy energetic balance in our life, and that we're not only helping other people, but we're ensuring that we're also meeting our needs personally, then we really become no help to anyone, because now we're not even in a good place for ourselves. But it can be a bit of a challenge in order for us to be healthy, to be well, and not end up giving and doing more for other people. And we can very easily negate or neglect our own needs and our own life. So, part of my programs is my programs are all about helping mediums to create a sense of wholeness, of balance between the physical and non-physical worlds, helping them to understand how to communicate, how spirit's communicating with them, how to translate the messages, these energetic impressions, and make sense of what it is that spirit is communicating. But I also help them to do well and to be well in their lives, giving them practices and tools that I have come to learn and to know, simply because these are the practices and tools that I do in order for me to know my wellness, for me to have that sense of self and that sense of well-being in the middle of also helping other people. And so it's like as I said, I'm really passionate about it. It's to me, mediumship is the most healing modality that is out there. As I said, it can be one word that can make the most significant difference in someone's life. I remember I use this story lots in my conversations with people. But I remember the very first professional reading I ever did for someone. This was a really big deal, because not only was I now, left my old job and I had no plan B, like this is what I have to make this work, because I don't know, if I'm not doing this, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. And so there was pressure that way. It was the first time that I was being paid as a service for this. And so I've had a lot of pressure. I was just like, oh my gosh, like I hope that I can do this. Like it's so funny, even though I had all those experiences prior, the pressure of needing to be able to bring through those messages for someone was immense. And when I sat down in that session, I remember falling into a deep sense of panic, because in that moment, even though I had been in communication with spirit and I understood the messaging because of all of the conversations I had already been having for years, I wasn't getting anything at all for this particular individual. And I could tell her that I had a male that was coming forward. I could tell her that it was her husband. But after that, there was nothing there. And I actually said to her, I said, I apologize. I'm not getting anything. I said, you know what? I'm just going to I feel like I need to give you your money back. I just don't feel like this is a successful connection to the other side. And I was sitting there and she said, well, please just try. Like, please just try. I'm willing to wait. And so I'm okay, take a breath, go back into the energy stream and connect with her husband. And I said to her, I said, you know what? I'm really sorry. I said, he's not giving me anything. I can't tell you anything about him. He's not telling me how he died. I have no evidential information to offer you in it. I said, I have no message that he's offering. He's only giving me one word. And she said, what's the word? And I said, he's giving me accident. And in that moment, she sat straight up in her chair. Went forward. She started weeping. She just started weeping in the chair. And she said, oh my God, Bonnie, that's all I wanted to know. I wasn't looking for anything else. I just needed to know that. And so I was like, I was like incredibly relieved because I wasn't able to give her anything else other than that one word. But as the story goes, is that her husband was killed in a motorcycle accident, and his best friend had led her to believe, because of conversations that they had had, that if ever he died, he would take his own life and he'd go out on his bike. It was just something that they would say or they would do. And the best friend was saying to her that he had killed himself and that he had taken his life. And she couldn't understand that because her and her husband were in a really good place. They were leaving on a vacation. He wasn't depressed. There were no financial challenges. There wasn't, their marriage was solid and secure. He didn't leave a note. There was nothing that would have indicated anything suicidal. And so for her to come, she had waited. It was 5 years since her husband had died, and she had waited for someone to be able to help her to reconcile that within her. And she said to me as she was leaving, she said, where have you been for the last 5 years? And I said, trying to accept the fact that this is my world, trying to, come out of that woo-woo closet. And she thanked me for profusely. But that one word and that one reading changed the trajectory of her life. From that point forward, she got into a new relationship, she got a new job, she moved communities, and within 3 months, and she contacted me and just thanked me for profusely, because for 5 years she hadn't been able to move forward. And after that session, she was able to make the changes that she needed to in order for her to reclaim her life again. So it was beautiful in the experience, and I use that, in my teachings as well, to help people to understand that it's not just the big profound messages. Those are wonderful. And yes, there's a lot of evidence that we can bring forward to help to confirm life after death, but that sometimes the message is simply one word, and that one word is what someone needs to hear the most. And so, that was as I said, for my very first reading, that took a lot of weight and pressure off me for sure. And it's just been amazing. I mean, like I said, time and time again, of what I've seen, what I've witnessed, what's transpired in these connections has been amazing. And it's still, to this day, I still have my own what would be sensitivities or challenges. It can get very overwhelming, even over this last, a month ago, where we're looking here at some of the on a global scale of some of the things that have been taking place, from the earthquakes that are happening, the fires, the hurricanes, the floods. There are mass amount of people in loss, and grief can happen whether we lose a loved one, or whether we lose our home, we lose our jobs, we lose, anything. There's grief that takes place, and we as mediums are super sensitive to the energy of grief, and that grieving is with us all the time. And so even for myself, several weeks ago, I really just needed to tap out. I needed to come back into an enormous amount of self-care, being able to give myself permission to, not only cry, but also move through the many emotions that I was picking up and feeling from the world around me. There's lots of times where a lot of the practices that I've, introduced and share with my students, as I said, are the very things that I incorporate and use faithfully in my life. And I honestly don't know how I would get through those times if I didn't have those tools and that information to help me to be well through some of those bigger energetic challenges that play out and happen. I've been able to really create a wonderful relationship with spirit on the other side. Of course, boundaries being a massive important one of those. I didn't understand the importance of boundaries with the non-physical world until I really understood the need for boundaries in my personal life. And what I've come to understand is that what we do in our physical world has a direct bearing on what becomes permission, so to speak, in the non-physical world. And so that's something else that's very relative and important to understand, that when we honor our boundaries here in our physical world, that our boundaries will be honored and respected in the non-physical world as well. So that overwhelm that I used to feel, that unexplainable or almost inability to handle all of the interruptions of spirit, always having the chaos of spirit energy around me, creating disassociation and really causing me to find almost like a no grounding or the inability to stay focused in my own life. That really has dissipated. That's not a part of my world anymore, simply because of the practices and the tools that I've incorporated and I use to support me in my life. My training, my programs, everything has come forward as a result of things that I've done personally to help and support, other mediums. And so I haven't really had, I believe there was a question even when I logged on here earlier about, and if I had any mentors or I had any help, if previously in before I started helping other people. And the real truth of that is no. I actually started working professionally, and in doing those initial readings. And as I said, it was like every third or fourth reading that was happening, I had people coming and asking if I could help them to navigate their sensitivity. They'd share their experiences. I'd share some of the tools of practices that I was starting to apply in my own life, even at that time. But what I would do in those sessions is I was receiving the guidance. I was receiving, their loved ones were telling me some tips and tricks that would be helpful. Their angels and guides were directing it, and in communication with the divine, being able to create the practices and things that would be most beneficial for them. So before I was already working probably for 3 or 4 years professionally before I actually took a mediumship class. And I had gone and taken a workshop with Charles Virtue, and I had gone to this to learn and understand more about mediumship. And more importantly, I wanted to make sure I was doing it right and that I was, able to help people in the best possible way, that I wasn't missing something. And over that 2 days, I just discovered that I was doing it. I was all of the practices, everything that, he was introducing, all of the things he was teaching were the very things that I had been teaching and the very practices that I had already been, putting into my life. And so if anything, that training was very validating for me. It really gave me a sense of saying, oh, wow, I actually do know what I'm doing. I actually, it was very reaffirming that way. I did some, what programs with John Holland somewhere around that time as well, and just helping me to understand the different ways that spirit communicates and things like that. Just again, wanting to become as skilled and practiced as I possibly could. And again, just reaffirming the things I already knew, or the approaches that I was already taking based on what spirit had taught me and what the angels had guided for me. And so that too was very reaffirming that I was on to something. This was of benefit, because if this is what other people, who I was seeing as being the, major professionals in the industry, even at that time, if that's what they were sharing, I really was trusting what I had been receiving for all of those years, even prior to working professionally. So the programs really merged from that, initially from those conversations that I was having. Then I would do like my very first mediumship workshop was like a 3 hour afternoon event where, I handed out two pieces of paper. It was just like, but it was like the beginning of it. And it was like every time I taught and every time I was helping someone, I was learning more about mediumship. I was learning more about spirit communication. And through that, the efforts, and even through some of the questions that my students would begin to ask, it was through my conversations with my spiritual team, with my angels and guides, that I was able to derive the programs and bring the processes and really begin to break things down, or the theory behind mediumship, to give a basis of information and a grounding, some grounding information to help mediums understand the metaphysical principles of what they were experiencing, but really concrete practices and approaches to that communication in order to help alleviate the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, and of course, to do this work in the world. I have a lot of people who train with me that train because they feel like they really feel a call to help other people with these abilities of theirs. They feel a deep yearning and a sense of purpose, and want to just, as I said, help to make that positive difference. I also have a lot of people who take the training in order to help just reconcile their grief, to help and understand where their loved one is, how to experience their loved one in the essence of their spirit energy now, how to interpret and receive those messages for themselves without needing, not that needing to go to mediums. I don't want to take that away, but they just, like myself, wanted to become more empowered and understand a little bit more in terms of, where their loved ones are and how to recognize them now when they show up. So I also have a lot of mediums that I work with that have other professions, lawyers and doctors and nurses and business people who teachers, who all have other professions, but are mediums and want to utilize their connection to the other side in order to help and support the work that they're doing. And so they learn the communication, they go through the training and programs, not because they want to go and do readings for other people, simply so that they can already help the people that they're working with already. And so it's amazing to me, just the amount of people, like it's not such a small group of people, in terms of have these abilities, that everyone has the ability to communicate with the other side. Everyone has the skills, everyone has the means and the way in which to bridge heaven and earth. And it's just a matter of learning, some of the skills, the processes, and more importantly, being able to practice, because like anything, requires practice. The more we practice something, the better we become at it. I had the angels tell me one time that in the sense that it's possible for everyone to be a medium, and to understand that just as it's possible for everyone to sing a song, everyone has the ability, has a voice to sing a song. Some people just happen to sing better than others. And the same can be said about mediums. We all have the ability, and some are just able to translate the energetic impressions in a more skilled way than perhaps others do. But it doesn't mean that they are not available. And it doesn't mean that if you're someone who is interested in mediumship, that it doesn't mean that it's not possible for you to learn. It doesn't matter when you come into this. As I said, as a child, for me, it was at the very early ages where I was having it. And I never set out to do this work. This work set out for me, I think even before I was born. I think it was something that God had planned even before I incarnated. And so, with it just becomes the understanding that this is something, we're not as gifted or special or unique in terms of this connection. This is indeed something that everyone has access to. We all have access to love, and it's through love that we're able to receive and connect with those on the other side. And so, yeah, I really, as I said, I'm passionate about this work, and I really believe in its purpose. I believe in a medium's purpose, even at times where maybe they don't believe in that purpose for themselves. So, yeah, we're going to have some great conversation over these next 10 days. I'm going to go and I'm going to go into the chat here in a moment. If you have any questions about anything I shared, I want to encourage you to go ahead and post those questions in there. I'll hang out here for a little while and just help in whatever way I can. Anything that you would like to further, hear more about. So I'm just going to move through. Oh my gosh, it's so great. It's so great to see everyone. So Eleanor, I kind of answered hers. If I had someone else help me, and I answered that one earlier. So let me just go here. Hello. Oh my gosh, so glad you guys are here. Oh my goodness, love it. I'm excited you guys are here too. Oh my gosh, so wonderful. Hello. Oh, yeah. I love hosting Medium's World. I got guidance to do this earlier in the year. This is only the second time that I've put this event together. And part of it, as I said, is about bringing awareness to mediumship as an alternative for people in terms of helping them to heal and find a sense of hope and faith in life again. And so I just, there's so many mediums that are amazing healers and channels and are able to bring through undescribable help and support from the other side. As I said, that begins to create miracles. And so I love that I have a chance, to talk to some of the individuals, of course, that have mentored with me and are out in the world using their connection to the other side to help people in many different forms and different ways. So I really love that we get to do this. It brings a sense. I know even after the first one, I had a lot of mediums reaching out and saying how it brought a sense of belonging to them, that suddenly they realized there was a community of people who experienced life the way that they did, had the same feelings or thoughts about things, or it really helped them to feel less isolated and alone. And that's important. I think, it's isolating enough and difficult enough for us to go through the world, feeling like we don't belong, and then suddenly to find, all the other people that don't belong have actually belonged the whole time. And so it's so great how we begin to find each other and have a sense of home and community as well. So I'm really excited about it as well. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You guys are so, thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Oh my gosh. I feel your gratitude so much. Hi, Sheila. Oh, I love that. Sheila says I had given her a reading after her parents passed away in 2009, and she remembers every word. Oh, I love that. It made a huge miracle in your life. Oh, that's what it's all about for me. That truly is. It's not about proving it. I'm not out to prove this to anyone who doesn't believe. I don't believe that's my job. I'm not here to prove to anyone that life after death is possible. My job here is to help those who are seeking and are looking for that healing that is available through those connections to the other side. So, oh my gosh, Sheila, it's so wonderful to hear from you. Oh, I love it. Just enjoying the story. Oh my gosh, yeah. I've got so many aspects of that story. And anybody who knows me well knows that I have the gift of gab. So I can tell all kinds of stories about experiences, and even in terms of that journey into doing this work. There's so many other synchronicities and things that played out in my life that led me into really moving it. But as I said, it definitely wasn't something like I didn't look at as a little kid think, oh, when I grow up, I want to be a medium. I had other aspirations, definitely. But this has really been something that's brought me the most joy for sure. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love this question, Faith. So Faith's question is it possible to not know you're a medium? And she knows that she's an empath. She maybe just doesn't know that she's a medium. I want to say that in this. Yes, absolutely. And that a lot of people can have empathic experiences. The fact that you're an empath already is indicating that you have an energetic sensitivity. So for a lot of individuals, just to understand, we all have intuition. Every single human being has intuition. Every single human being has a psychic sense of things. That's where that gut feeling comes from, that something just doesn't feel right, or I'm always trusting my gut. There's people who, we work with that all the time, whether we are aware of this being, an inner guidance system or anything, it's something every single human being has. Empaths begin to have energetic sensitivity. So even though you maybe haven't had direct experiences with spirit that would be concrete in saying you are a medium, the very fact that you have energetic sensitivity as an empath is an indicator to me that you are being invited to step into, to discover more about that sensitivity. This is where, I work with, I would say, there's many different kinds of empaths. I teach about the 5 different kinds of empaths, and we as mediums are all 5 of those in one. It's just we're super sensitive. We're sensitive to the environment. We're sensitive to people's thoughts. We're sensitive to animals and to the earth and what plays out in the cosmos. We're sensitive to the pain and suffering of other people, whether physically or emotionally, and we're sensitive to the spirit world. And so when we look at the empathic sensitivity, it's an indicator that there maybe is some awareness that is looking to be understood, or something for you to discover more about. So there are a lot of empaths that suffer greatly because of their energetic sensitivity, that have come into, even into the program, to begin to understand how to navigate that, in a healthier way, and who have discovered through that, oh my gosh, they didn't even realize that they had been communicating with spirit the whole time. That's one of the fun things about it, is that we can experience all of these things and it's perfectly normal for us. So we don't think there's anything special about it. We think, and then it's like they come into the program and they're suddenly going, oh my gosh, that's been actually my loved one communicating with me the whole time. Suddenly the pain from their body is gone. The emotional imbalance they've been feeling dissipates as they begin to understand that it was something that they were in awareness of, an energy that they were in awareness of, that they were dealing or processing as if it was their own. And so that's what I love. So yes, you're an empath, and does that, you don't even know you're a medium? Absolutely. It just, like, I want to go back to the scope of the psychic abilities. People don't even realize they're using their psychic abilities or intuition, but they're using it. That's no different, and so it's kind of the, within that same variable. The other thing about it is to understand that we as mediums, not only are we spiritual empaths, let's say we have all of these sensitivities that we're processing and dealing with because of the sensitivity to the spirit world, we also have an accelerated psychic ability as well. And that, or we could say an amplified psychic ability. And so many mediums, you'll see they're psychic mediums, and that's because of the heightened sense of sensitivity between the physical and non-physical worlds, and the energetic sensitivity. And when we look at everyone being psychic and not really knowing they are, this is an understanding that there are some amazing psychics. One of my best friends is probably one of the best, not probably, I know she is, like, one of the best psychic I've ever encountered in my life. And she has completely honed her skills at it. And she wants nothing to do with dead people. So, she's like so glad that I'm doing the dead people and she'll do the psychic work, right? She's like, you can have the dead people. And they show up for her, but she just ignores them. And no, she's claiming she's going to be the psychic. But we all have that ability. And then as mediums, we have the psychic scope of things. Not every psychic is a medium, but every medium is psychic. But every psychic, just as I said, can learn how to open up the channels, open up for that communication to the other side. So just as every empath, it sits there. Any energetic sensitivity is an indicator that there are mediumistic abilities that are yet to be discovered. That's a real long-winded answer to your question, Faith. Really, really awesome. Oh my gosh, Donica, hi, hi. So Donica says, so if a person isn't a good singer, can you still learn even if you don't have a strong sense of being a medium? Absolutely. And I want to tell you, as soon as you open that door, you're going to discover things about your connection to the non-physical world, as I said, that you maybe didn't even realize what spirit communication that. And once that door opens to the other side, just for those of you who are, interested and intrigued by it, is just to know that you don't really ever close it. Like it's a door that once you open up into it and spirit finally has the opportunity to connect with you and to for you, as you begin to develop, it's something, it's always there. It becomes a part of who you are. And so everything requires practice. So even if you don't really feel like you've got a strong sense of being a medium, that through your willingness to learn, for you to practice the skills, to apply the principles, to really even open that up, you're going to discover that you have been a medium the whole time. Because I want to tell you this is how you know you're a medium. You know you're a medium when you're interested in mediumship. You know you're a medium when you go for readings, for mediumship readings. It's like people, and I want to say, yes, the grieving go, but in grieving, there's a belief system that says, I believe in the ability to communicate with the non-physical world. And that is something that we all on a level remember deep inside of us, even if we don't have conscious awareness to it. And so to me, the very thing is, when we understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, that inside of all of us, there is a spirit. And when we die, that our spirit leaves our body. It's just death is a change of form, that we don't cease to exist. So it's always made sense to me that one spirit can talk to another spirit. We're doing it in physical form right here. My spirit's in my body, your spirit's in your body. We're having a conversation. But just because one of us leaves our body, it doesn't make us any less spirit, and it doesn't make it any less possible for us to communicate. So, there too. And again, the moment that you were interested in the paranormal, that was an indicator you were a medium. The moment that you're saying, I am so intrigued by the work of mediums, it's an indication that you've got some abilities there that just need to be cultured and that you need to be made aware of. I run a certification program. And what I do in level 1, I know some of you that are attending here are part of level 1, so I'm kind of giving it away. But I always congratulate everybody on the very first day and tell them they all passed, because they don't need the certificate in order to be the medium. It's like only mediums come to my class. Like it doesn't happen otherwise, right? So it's always, it's like a shirt. You pass the moment you show up, so to speak. So it's really, yeah, even if you don't have a strong sense of it, your interest in it is enough of what I always call an invitation. It's like spirit inviting you to learn more, inviting you to understand your own ability to be able to interface and interact with the non-physical world. Oh my gosh, such a great question. Oh, I love that. I love that, Donica. Oh, Shauna, you're so welcome. Oh my goodness, you're welcome. Oh, Katie. Oh, thank you. I'm glad I stepped up too. I truly am. uh, yeah, Donica, there too. That's the other piece of it too. A lot of connections in symbolism, like through birds and flowers and things like that. Spirit will utilize nature in order to bring messages to us. So we will see certain animals, or spirit will make signs or symbols for us, and they'll often use nature as a way to do that, because nature is such a high vibration, and so it matches their vibration very easily. So they will often use birds and dragonflies and butterflies and things like that to capture to share those messages. symbols as well, different numbers that repeating over and over. I get a lot of messages through lyrics of songs. Like I will, even in my client sessions, spirit's communicating with me, and all of a sudden I have a song going off in my head. And so I have to sing that song, and I'm not a very good singer, but I sing that song, for my client in order to just like, I'm not sure what this means, but there's always a major message, even within the lyrics of music. So they use many different ways in which to get our attention and help us to know that they're with us, that they love us, that they haven't actually left. They're just in a different form now. The physical world and the non-physical world actually exist simultaneously. It's like it overlaps. You remember earlier I said that heaven is 2 inches away from our fingertips, but that's an energy field, and it's an overlapping energy field. And so we're up close and personal with them all the time. And so they, as I said, they utilize symbols and lyrics of songs, and different scents and different, things to help bring us awareness to them. Just like the angels, they often will leave, pennies and dimes. And I've been working with, my loved ones and saying the $100 bills would be really so much better than the nickels. That would be really wonderful. So, just they're able to do so much to let us know that their presence is with us. Oh my gosh. Oh, Kathy. Oh my, so hello, Kathy. Oh, Kathy, I love this message, this question so much. I want to say first and foremost, I'm so sorry for the loss of your mom. I think that one of the greatest, as I said, challenges that we go through as human beings is being able to reconcile the loss of someone from physical to non-physical, and that even as mediums, we are prone to grieve, and that we can't deny that humanness that we all are. I had once, I'll dovetail back to your question, but I at one time had another medium tell me that she never extends condolences to people simply because why would she? They're perfectly fine. They're in, they've crossed over, they're happy, they're no longer suffering. But for me, that's just not it for me. Because I know how difficult processing my losses have been, and grief needs to be honored. Those relationships mattered. And so, I'm so sorry that, you've been looking and working through the loss of your mom. It's a very difficult journey. When you're saying in your dream that she's coming to you in dreams, but she's frustrated that she can't talk, that is definitely an indication that she recognizes you as, now that she's a non-physical, that she's bringing it in the dream state. First and foremost, is one of the very first ways that spirit begins to show up for us following their death. It's because when we go to sleep, basically our grief goes to sleep, our ego goes to sleep, and so we become more available and accessible to them, and they will show up in dream state in it. It is important to know, first and foremost, even if they show up and they're frustrated, or it feels like we can't quite talk with them, or they can't talk with us, it's not that they're frustrated on the other side. If we have a dream and they're angry in the dream, it doesn't mean they're angry at us. It's just how our mind, translates that in some way to create the movie of the dream. It's not the truth of what they're experiencing. So in it, I always encourage people to look for what is light about it. So even though your mom might be frustrated because she can't talk, she's also showing up. And what light in it is saying, I'm right here. I'm here. And she's showing up. And I would say, are they smiling at you? Your mom's presence, even in the dream, is an indication that she just wants you to know that she hasn't, like, even though she's not in physical, she hasn't gone anywhere, and she is looking to communicate. She's probably asking for you to learn how to communicate, how to sense her now. But the frustration of it, she's actually not frustrated, even though your mind might be interpreting it that way. So just know, is it indicating? Yeah, it feels like definitely it's like an invitation. She's wanting to connect with you. She's wanting to help you to heal your grief. And she's, wanting to still have a relationship with you, even though she's no longer in physical form. And the fact, even the simple fact that you remember the dream, that's important. And that's where you know that it was indeed a visit from spirit. When it is so real, it's so clear that you wake up and just, there's just a sense of them being there. It really wasn't just a random dream of your mom, that she was definitely in presence with you. So what a beautiful gift for you to be able to receive her, through your dreams. As I said earlier in my life, I might have had maybe one or two dreams of my dad, but it wasn't anything that I could say I had any like really clear messaging or anything from that. So, oh my gosh, so great, so great. Hi, Melina. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. So first off, I really relate to what you're saying. Just how many years that you didn't share that you were that you were a psychic, that you had these abilities. You didn't want to be labeled as crazy. Oh my gosh, I totally understand that. Yeah, or let alone tell people you're seeing dead people. I mean, exactly. Like it's just like it's hard enough to feel accepted and find our niche and and find that place of wellness or belonging in our lives, let alone now to bring the fact that, wow, we see dead people too. Okay, I see. Yeah. So she said, you're saying over the years it kind of ebbs and flows depending on what you're going through and how burnt out you've gotten. Absolutely. And so that's again in understanding, and especially in my level 2 program, I really help mediums in terms of being able to not go into what is the psychic burnout, compassion fatigue, empathic overwhelm, all of that, because it's a very real thing for us as mediums that we can experience. And that's often experienced as a result of giving more or doing more for others than what we're receiving for ourselves. Like there's an imbalance of helping other people before we help ourselves. And I mean, there's all kinds of variables that fall into that. And so our vibration is what dictates our connection to the other side. So when we have things going on in our life and we're challenged, or we've got upset, or somebody dies, or we are struggling with financially, whatever it is, all of those variables can affect our joy factor. And when our joy factor is affected, it affects our vibration. So when we go into a lower vibration, we can spirit is still there. We don't stop being a medium. It just that our alignment, like we're no longer fully aligned with the non-physical world. And so when we experience them, our emotional body dictates our vibration. So when we're feeling better and we're more in flow with life and we're taking care of ourselves, now we're more aligned with the spirit world, and we're able to connect. So I really understand what you're saying, the ebbs and flows. Those ebbs and flows as well also dictate the kinds of experiences you have with the spirit world as well. So that joy factor, that vibration is so important that we as mediums sustain a healthy vibration. Because when we are in a low vibration, not only do we kind of pinch off the connection to the non-physical world, that we can also start having lower vibrational experiences with the spirit world as well. So again, we could say negative energies or darker beings, or almost malicious spirits sometimes that can begin to be part of our experience. So maintaining our vibration becomes a very important part of being a medium. We need to be attending to how we feel. We need to continue to do our healing work. We need to incorporate practices and things in our life in order to help us to be able to sustain that higher vibration energetically. Because a higher vibration, not only do we feel better in our day-to-day life, but a higher vibration puts us into alignment with higher vibrating, excuse me, higher vibrating spirits on the other side. So those negative experiences we might have been having with more of what we could call, or people call, the dark forces, or we're less susceptible simply because of the vibration, our vibrational sustainability. So I understand, yeah, the ebbs and flows, and that burnout is a very real thing that can happen. I actually had a crash myself probably about 5 years ago, simply because even in all of the effort to be able to create what was balance of doing this work and being in my life, there were still things that I was not attending to. And the one thing about mentoring mediums is I always find, here too, I have lived it. I've gone through it. I've suffered with all of it. I just did my level 2 launch retreat this past weekend in Calgary, Alberta, and gathering with a group of mediums there. And I know some of you are online here tonight, so I'm so glad you're joining in for the conversation too. And I said, shared with them, I've been through all of this stuff, and my goal is to help you to not have to go through it. There are ways to avoid those pitfalls and those challenges. I also know that through it's a part of, I went through it not only because of my own lack of awareness, but I also went through it because, I'm this person who's being called to teach and facilitate and help other mediums. So I come with, the backing of having lived it, walked it. I understand it to the core. And so, yeah, I just really want to encourage you, Melina, to really make taking care of yourself an immense priority. We are the most important part of doing this work. We are the medium. We're bringing something in from the intangible world and making it tangible through our words, through our art, through our dance, through our presence, our writing, everything. We're translating energy. And so we need to understand that if we're not well, that doesn't get to happen, right? We are the most important person, so to speak, in the equation. Mediumship works in a 3-tier system. So there's the sitter, or the person who's looking for the communication. They come to the medium, who's the one right in the middle, and of course, and spirit. But without the wellness of the medium, that translation or transmission of energy doesn't happen. The healing methods do not become possible, and the suffering continues. But we are the most important. And so our self-care is priority. It absolutely needs to be. I'm so sorry to hear that, it got so challenging for you. Yes. Oh my gosh. All right. So I'm looking at the time. Of course, there are still questions coming in. Oh my gosh. Yes, Kathy, it's just another change. Death is just a change of form. We are eternal beings. We don't cease to exist. We are that everything in the universe is life, and that where we go is just a change of going from physical to non-physical, but we still continue to exist. And again, of course, it's still possible to be able to interact and communicate. Of course. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, everyone. Our time here tonight, of course, your questions, as I said, they're going to be a part of another project that I'm working on. So I, wish I could answer everyone's questions here tonight. And of course, you have opportunity to come back tomorrow night with our first guest speaker, Christina Seitz, who is a wonderful individual and who, utilizes her connection to the non-physical world in helping and support the work that she's doing in helping, market and promote. And she's got an amazing marketing business that she runs. And she just, has this woo-woo way of living her life that helps and supports her in helping and supporting others. So thank you so much for being a part of the conversation here this evening. Such a joy. So grateful to all of you for being a part of it. And I can't wait to come back here tomorrow night when we're in conversation with Christina. God bless everybody. Thanks for hanging out. And I'm so excited about these next 10 days and the opportunity to share in maybe alleviating some of the fears, overcoming some of the mystery, and really even just helping you to find some peace in the loss of your loved ones, as well as some peace in you being who you are in the world too. All right, until we meet again. Bye-bye for now.